Welcome to Simply Robotics, the podcast, a podcast exploring the animation industry one episode at a time. I'm your host, Monique. You can find me on all social media platforms at Simply Robotics. Robotics is spelled ROBOTIX. When listening to the show, use the hashtag Simply Robotics Pod to join in the conversation. This episode is a little different. I sat down with former coworker turned friend Jen Hurler of Animation Complex to talk about her journey in the animation industry, working in feature film, and life after working at Blue Sky Studios. This conversation was recording before I really knew what I wanted to do with the audio and before I came up with the structure of the whole show. So if you remember, maybe you don't, maybe you just are, becoming aware of Simply Robotics or what have you. Back in about September, I wrote a blog post about our conversation. So now I'm actually releasing the audio of the entire conversation between us. So this episode, I'm sure you looked at the time already, is going to be a little bit more than an hour-ish. So let's get to it. So welcome, everybody. This is a work in progress podcast. It's called the Simply Robotics Podcast. I am unsure of what episode this will be just yet, but I'm excited and happy for it. And I'm happy to have a guest in this episode. Please, everyone, welcome Jen Hurler.
Hi! Oh, this is so exciting.
Yeah, so I just was coming to meet up with Jen to actually do a blog post for my website, Simply Robotics. And then I thought, why don't I just interview her since I'm doing this Patreon thing, and I think it could be really interesting for that. So, Jen, can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, like Monique said, my name is Jen, and I am currently in the MFA program at the School of Visual Arts in New York City, working on my thesis film. But before that, I spent the last 4 years working at Blue Sky Studios, which is where I met Monique.
Four whole years.
I know.
Oh, gosh.
I know. And Monique and I worked for almost 3 years together in the story department. We worked in production management as PAs, which meant we basically were just wrangling artists
literally
as best we could.
Jen had a scooter and she was scooting around.
Oh my god, always.
I was walking very fast.
Wasn't even that big.
No.
But yeah, you needed a scooter. And we were just trying to keep that place afloat, man.
And we did.
Yeah, we
totally did. Our boss knew that he could, be out and things wouldn't be on fire. Yeah. He would come back and things would still be running.
Yeah, together, Monique and I started on the Peanuts movie and then Ice Age. You got credit on Ice Age, right?
Yeah, I came on at the end of Ice Age.
The fifth Ice Age. And then Ferdinand. And then you're going to get a credit for Spies in Disguise, Pigeon Impossible. I feel like if you don't, you know what, I'll make sure. We know enough people there.
Yeah.
We'll make sure. And then I better get one for Nimona because I put 2 years into that movie.
Yeah. I did the IMDb credit for Nimona, though.
Yeah.
I did.
I listed for Pigeon Impossible, Spies in Disguise. I put myself as, you can put, PA uncredited.
Yeah, I did that.
We each worked on our own shows, but, you work on everything.
Yeah, being in the story department, if Jen needed help, if I needed help, you have to just, help each other. And when one person's not there.
Yeah, because the first year I was at Blue Sky, I was in the fur department as a PA, and that's a department where everyone kind of worked on everything. It wasn't in story where we were kind of assigned a film each. That one I just worked on whatever needed to be done. So that was kind of tough because you had to kind of just track so many different... You had to switch gears
and fur doesn't really stop, right?
Yeah.
They continue working throughout each film.
Yeah, it was really funny because when I first started, it was the tail end of Peanuts, which is how I got that first credit. And then we were in the midst of Ferdinand was super heavy duty. We had all these characters we were doing. We had no context who any of them were. We knew there was a goat. We didn't realize it was one of the main characters in Lupe. And then we were doing Ice Age, and it's just
that's what I was thinking. Wait, doesn't Ice Age was in between both of those movies?
Yeah.
So Fur was working on
with
all
Ice
three.
Age, it was interesting because at that point we were working on the Geotopia characters.
Yeah,
which at the end had 2 seconds of screen time.
And
we spent
loved it.
months on those.
That was such a pretty space.
It was. I'm really mad. I heard that they're doing they might do not a Netflix show, but some kind of streaming show.
Okay, they should even do a short.
Yeah,
because that location, all the assets and everything of that.
So many months.
Yeah.
So much money went into those characters, and then they were too complicated. It was too much, and it all got cut.
It's okay.
It's the movie biz.
Apparently so. So, like myself, you do have your own animation entity.
Oh, yeah.
Called, right? I know, Jen. You didn't know that's what we were coming here to do?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's called Animation Complex, right?
Yep.
Okay, tell listeners a little bit about that.
Oh, man.
When did you start?
Complex. I guess, has it really been maybe 3 years ago already for me? It had a very slow start because I actually, when I first moved to Connecticut, about a year after I started at Blue Sky. Was it a year? I feel like I can't even keep track anymore. And it wasn't even been that long, but it's like, I'm like,
it
back
feels
in
like
the
ages.
old days.
Yeah, I understand.
But I went to my local library because there was a podcasting class, and I was always interested. It's not that I needed this class, but I kind of thought it was a good chance to meet just like new people in my community. And just, I like, local libraries are very important. So I was like, oh, I'll go. And I ended up making friends with people who I'm still friends with today. And in that class, that's where I kind of solidified the idea that I always had. Because I wasn't necessarily trying to start a podcast first and foremost so much as I really wanted to start a YouTube channel.
Okay.
And I wanted to do video essays. And I was always kind of just scared because, like, the internet can be scary.
It's
and, like,
mean.
YouTube can be kind of mean, too.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to be someone speaking with authority about something that apparently online is like very polarizing, like cartoons.
Yes, I've seen it.
So I was always a little scared. So I thought, maybe a podcast would be like a safer way, and like the website. So that in that class, that's where I finally like settled on the name, because that was like the reason I didn't start for so long.
I remember,
the name. It's so hard to come up with a good name. But now it exists, and it's not quite what I want it to be yet. It exists mostly as a blog. But I kind of update kind of just whenever. And then right now, because I'm back at school, the YouTube channel has become a little more of a personal vlog for me, tracking my progress rather than like the different types of things I want to analyze and talk about in like the industry at large. But I think our sites are pretty similar because it's kind of just us exploring this industry and like this art form.
For sure.
Yeah.
So now that you mentioned your vlog series, can you tell us a bit what it's about and why you decided to document your thesis?
Yeah. So the first time, so I started at Blue Sky 4 years ago, and then 2 years before that, I had actually started in this exact program at SVA that I'm in right now. And then I ended up having, one thing led to another, and I was offered the job at Blue Sky as a PA, and I didn't want to not, take that opportunity. I wasn't sure when the next time I would get to work at a feature studio.
This is true.
When's the next time that door would be wide open for me to go for it. So I tried to do both at the same time. I tried to work part-time, and I tried to do this master's program at the same time, and that quickly fell apart. And to be honest, at the same time, it was kind of a godsend that I got that job because I was not doing well
in school?
SVA. I wasn't not doing well like academically.
Okay.
But like mentally, I was not doing well because it's a 2-year intensive program, and most of the students, I quickly realized I was one of maybe 2 students in the program that had actually like never opened Maya before.
Okay.
Like aside from like trying to like follow a really crappy tutorial and like model a hand or whatever. So I quickly realized a lot of them are international students that came from like 4-year like CG animation programs. They were basically just here to like get the American experience, the New York City experience, and like get an advanced degree. So I quickly was like, I realized I just needed more time for things to just sit in my brain and digest. Like I was like,
everything was like too much newness.
Yeah, I just had like such a huge learning curve. So I started going part-time, and then I got the job, and then I ended up not going. So this time around, I was really scared about, frankly, just like losing my marbles and not handling things well. Okay. So I kind of was like, well, might as well put that on the internet. But in all honesty, it was something that I kind of needed to remind myself that this isn't the end of the world.
Good.
And
I would tell you stuff like that.
Yeah. So it was kind of just a reminder it was like something to document, like just like, because I remember like how low some of those lows were. when I was in the lab at 4 a.m. and like for some reason the render wasn't working and you didn't know why, and you spent 2 hours trying to troubleshoot it, and then you finally somebody else is there in the lab at 4 a.m. and you ask them for help, and then they like diagnose the problem in 20 minutes.
And it's like, oh, this was just on. Or
whatever. It's like, oh, this little checkbox in this setting in this hidden window that like they took out of this version, but like if you know the whatever, and you're just like, I hate everything.
So true. Yeah.
So I just thought it'd be cool. Also, I think that is kind of a side of student life that doesn't get talked about. Everyone kind of shows again, it's like social media in general. People show their highlight reel.
Most definitely.
People don't really get to see the uglier side and the pressure that students put. And also even just the danger of being in an industry that is like both your career and like your hobby and your passion.
Yeah.
Like sometimes that, like I saw a quote today on like Twitter, and it was one of the VFX soldier or one of those like kind of higher up people.
Right.
And they made a comment about how, like, someone asked why VFX haven't unionized, and he kind of said, like, it's harder for industries where people are fueled by their passion to, like, think that shrewdly about things.
Yeah.
But I think it does happen, because I have so many friends who work in the industry now who, as students, like, in their free time, like, they were working on stuff, and they were working on stuff for classes, and then as soon as they get a job, it gets compartmentalized as a job still, but it's still like this thing that they love. Yeah. And like they don't mind that that's all that they put their time into, because it's like what they love to do. And like it doesn't matter if they even like are ghosting hours or they're like working weekends and they don't really do anything outside of that. And obviously like certain things are better. Like at least like the Blue Sky, you're paid overtime, you're paid you get meals if you work overtime. Not everyone's that lucky.
Sure.
Most places aren't that lucky.
True. Very true. Very true.
Yeah. So for me, it was kind of just, hey, there's kind of an underside to this that a lot of people aren't aware of when they first go into it.
So I appreciate your vlog series. One, because we don't work together anymore. So it's like
you get to hang out with me.
Yeah. It's like
people tell me that. People are like, oh, like it's like having a one-sided conversation with you, and I'm like, I don't know how to feel about that.
You still get your little dose of Jen. The second reason too why I like it is the same that you're talking about, like with Twitter and stuff like that. Like people are almost solely their usernames and Twitter handles. That by having the ability to see you behind the scenes in that, it's like, okay, so this is the person behind Animation Complex. This is the person behind the Jen Hurler.
Yeah,
Twitter
and I thought
name.
so much about that because like I have a personal site.
Yeah,
and I remember like. I was like, oh, I'm going to keep all my thesis stuff on, like, my personal site. I'm going to keep Animation Complex, like, very, like...
businessy?
Yeah. And then it was interesting, because I had talked to Ahmed, who runs Cartoon Brew, about that one time, like, just over email, because I was... One of the things, like, I've always found interesting about Cartoon Brew, and I feel like one of the things that he kind of gets called out a lot for, that I personally like, is that it's a news site, but it's also, like, he injects his opinions into things
he makes it personal.
Yeah, and for me, it's kind of like I personally feel like he straddles that line really well. But I know like some people get kind of iffy, you know, especially when he doesn't have the same opinion as them.
Yeah.
But for me, yeah, that was one of those things where I feel like I kind of was very much aware that there's so many animation blogs and there's so many things that like the thing that makes mine different is me.
Yes.
And that was kind of like that dumb like self-worth realization, like where I was like, oh wait, like
don't call it dumb.
I know, but it's like it was dumb for me to not appreciate that sooner, I guess. Yeah.
Why did you decide to go back to school?
Oh man,
I know we're going there.
Right? It's like part of me's like
this is important because you did your schooling already.
Yeah.
You had an industry job, then you had another industry job. So why go back to school if you're already in the industry?
Well, I feel like when I started as a PA, like, so when I was in school for the longest time, like, the one thing everyone always used to say was, oh, you should be a producer, like, you organize, like, every group project, like, I was the producer, because nobody else wanted to be. And I feel like part of it was, frankly, you know what, I'll say it, like, I think a little bit of it was in my undergrad, and, like, in life, I was often in very male-dominated classrooms and in industries, and I think, like, I kind of tended to just kind of downplay myself, and I would kind of just fall into that support role.
Okay.
So I feel like I also did legitimately like organizing that and doing that kind of thing, so it worked out. But I think that's also like one of those bigger things where so many of the producers in animation are women.
They are.
And I think it kind of, I feel like a lot of people, that happens to a lot of people. And like I never gave myself permission to really go for one of the more creative roles, despite that always being more of the goal. So I kind of did this. I was in this big studio. I was in production management. I didn't dislike it, but it kind of was, I kind of had a moment where, and I had this moment a lot, but I had like these conversations with people where it was like, well, is this what you really want? And the answer was always like, yes and no. Like, I feel like when you talk about a creative producer, someone who does get to kind of do both and like straddle those lines of like the artistic side and like the managerial side, those are like unicorns. Like, people kind of are like, well, the chances of you being that are like the same as you being like an A-list Hollywood actor, blah, blah, blah.
That sounds crazy.
I know. And it's like, well, somebody has to be that person.
Yeah.
So for
I didn't even know it was that rare.
I don't think it is. I think that was just like middle management, just kind of trying to like
keep you in your place.
Yeah, like a little bit. Again, like, because I would get so much pushback. Like, it was like as soon as they found out that there was a PA that didn't like that, not that didn't want to do that, but like had other creative ambitions.
Well, I guess, like, in that sense, your creative ambitions almost were too much.
Yeah.
For that, like...
Oh, yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, like...
It totally intimidated people.
You don't want to just be, like, the account manager or whatever type of PA. You're going for, like, really buddy-buddy with directors. You're like, that's what you're shooting for.
Yeah.
And it could be, like, a little, like, maybe alarming.
Oh, no, for sure.
For HR. I'm just saying. I personally don't know. I'm not going to make Jen throw anybody under the bus.
I don't care.
I'm just trying to...
That's true.
But okay.
Like, for me, I think creative-wise, like, I've always, like screenwriting and, like, writing in general has always been, like, the thing that I've liked the most. And I kind of talked myself out of that.
Oh, so interesting.
And it's funny because, like, this sounds... I don't mean to, like, put other people down, but it's one of those things where, like, you just need to scroll through, like, the dredges of Netflix and see how bad... No, but it's, like, there are a lot of bad movies that get made. Like, there are a lot of people who have opportunities... And it's kind of, again, nothing against them, because good for them, they had their shot.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, why did I not even let myself possibly take a shot, to do something good? And yeah, maybe I'll end up on the dredges of the bottom of Netflix too, and like, but at least I tried.
Yeah, and you probably won't, just because you already are a bit more knowledgeable anyway, and your support and your access is probably still more than theirs. So even if you're at the bottom, which I don't think you would be, you probably wouldn't be that far at the bottom.
It's funny that you're saying that, because like that's like the big stress with the film I'm making right now for school, because I'm just like it was kind of that, like, I've been, we were in those story rooms, like we learned so much in that room.
Yeah.
But like to then... It's almost like I have to check myself, because I expect myself to be like as good as that, like what I saw in the room, and I'm like, that's crazy. Like, they were professionals, like,
and they're just not there yet.
Yeah, and I was just like, you don't like, you learn things through osmosis for sure, but I was like, I'm not gonna magically I'm not gonna magically like make a good film, like, just because I was in that room. And even then, being in that room too, like knowing how the top of tiers of the industry, like how much back and forth, how much garbage would come out of those rooms, and like that needed to come out of those rooms, not even in a bad way, but like how much even the top of the top, like there's no secret formula, it's like whatever.
It's also crazy to like try and hold yourself to that standard as one person when that's like a team, and like you said, they have years and years of experience, but it's like you just almost feel like, I can do this, like it's possible. It's like, it's so easy for people to, it's like when people watch professional like athletes on TV and they're like, oh, like, why didn't you do that? And I'm just like, you can't. You try making it like, one of their practice sessions, like, okay, much less a game. Yeah, like, so like I'm doing that, or I'm just like, oh, well, like he did that, I could do that, and it's like, maybe not the first time around. Yeah, but, you're gonna try your best. I find myself in a similar space as I'm getting back into animation, and I'm learning 2D animation. That's not what I went to SVA for. So I'm like, there's so much bad stuff out there. I was like, I could do this. And I was like, but you can't. Like, you're trying right now. But can you tell us a little bit more about your thesis? Like, as much as you're comfortable. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the actual story... It's funny, I'm so bad at pitching it. Like, are you about to break? Like, no, it's hit the reboot button. Because it's funny, because every time I have to talk about it, I think about how, like, oh shit, I haven't practiced how to pitch it yet. But every time you have to talk about it, that doesn't count towards practicing? It, like, doesn't. It's just a reminder that, like, I need to properly, like, sit in a room and figure out, like, my elevator pitch. You should FaceTime me.
Oh, I know.
You don't even have to show your face. I won't show my face, you know.
But
accountability.
Yeah, I mean, my films, it's to boil it down as much as I can, it's about a boy and a tiger who are both in the woods. It's cold. They're both starving. The boy is cooking some food. The tiger confronts him, and they have this big fight, and then they basically get at a standstill, and the boy kind of decides to take a chance and hope that if he doesn't kill the tiger, it won't kill him.
Oh, interesting.
And he drops the knife, and then they kind of have this tense moment where they're kind of like, all right, like, kind of truce for now, working together, kind of, I'll keep you warm, you feed me, like, and then super predators team up, and that's terrible for everybody else who lives in the forest. But, see, I'm doing a really bad job of explaining it, but, like, the core of the story for me, is I really want that moment where they confront each other to be a moment where they empathize with each other, and a moment where they kind of realize, like, for me, like, one of the things that has impacted me the most growing up was when I slowly came to understand that every single person other than me kind of has this whole other life, you know, or has like a whole, every complex feeling and thought that I've ever had is shared by all different people. So it was kind of the idea that I wanted to just articulate that moment, and I wanted to do it in animation, which meant I didn't have to use humans, and I like tigers, so I wanted to use a tiger. I'm gonna use a tiger. And, like, yeah, so, like, empathy and, like, the complexity of others and recognizing others' humanity and trying to, like, realize that it's better to work together than separately is, like, the core of what I'm trying to do. But it's hard to articulate that because the actual plot, like, doesn't, like, that comes up, but it's, like, a very subtle, like, nuanced, like, performance. So when I try to explain, like, what actually happens, and then, like, oh, but, like, it's going to be really emotional, like, I don't explain it well.
Okay, I have a nice challenge which we will talk off air about to help you with that.
Okay.
So don't worry. Well, I want to now switch back to, since you're doing your thesis vlog and you still have this site, what has been some of your challenges in delivering content and content creation for both platforms?
I'm, like, already, like, 2 weeks behind on my vlog.
Are you really? You know, what I like to do is I like to let some weeks pass.
Yeah.
So then I just, like, binge it. And sometimes I just start from the beginning all over
again.
again.
That makes me so happy.
So, you know, I'm skewing probably your analytics a little bit.
That's totally fine. You know, I, like, look at the numbers, but, like, I kind of, I mean, the only thing that I've noticed with it, and this is kind of obvious, is that, like, the shorter videos do better. And that's, of course, you know, I knew that before that. And I knew when some of those early ones were, like, a bit longer, and I kind of let myself have them be longer because I knew that as I got busier, this would kind of be a bit of a back burner thing. This would kind of be, like,
for sure, like
a, hey, like, I'm dying, like, like, okay, bye.
Thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
So I was like, these can be longer because there's something, I have more to say.
Yeah.
I think the problem, too, for me is I never really had a proper editorial calendar like I wanted to for the site, because, like, the 3 funnels were always the actual blog, the YouTube, and then, like, the podcast, which, like, there's, like, one, like, baby episode.
Yeah,
I have episodes.
I was like, have you actually launched the podcast?
I never actually. So I had.
You've recorded.
Yeah, I have, like, I have 3 episodes in the can that, like, but, like, they're easily, like, a year old now. Like, I have one, like, I saw Storks in the theater. And, like, that's it's like that was, like, episode 3. And then I saw LaShawn Thomas he gave a talk in New York City. He's, like, this animator who's from New York, but he was doing 2D animation in, like, South Korea. Like, and his Twitter feed is, like,
is he back?
I don't remember, to be honest. But a while ago he was back in New York, and he did a talk at a bookstore, and I talked to him for a while, and, like, I was gonna do, like, I recorded that. And I asked if I could, like, I'm like, oh, can I, like, release the audio? Because it's one of those things, too, like, sometimes people, like, certain events, like, where people, you want to make them available to people. Obviously, some events you're not allowed to do that.
Correct.
But, you know, he's a pretty chill guy. He was pretty okay with it. But, like, I have that.
Like, I'm going to hear it.
Yeah.
Even if
it was really good.
Yeah, no, I really like him.
Yeah.
I've heard him on, I think it was the I Animate podcast also, when he was doing his Kickstarter stuff for his things.
Oh, for Cannon Busters. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the, I mean, like, whenever I go to an animation event, I always, even if you're not supposed to, like, I'm just gonna, like...
You're gonna say this?
No, I don't care. Like, I always record it. I mean, I don't, like, release it. Like, I record it more, like, from a journalistic standpoint. Like, I record it so that I can go back and I can, like, accurately quote people if I, like, decide to write a blog post about it. To be honest, I haven't really been to any where like you're explicitly not allowed to.
I mean, how are they gonna check?
Well, also I think it's just like I'm not trying to like post the whole, like I'm not trying to like just straight up bootleg someone's talk. Like it's more just for myself. Like I went to the Society for Animation Studies is like, you know, like a peer-reviewed journal, and like they have an annual conference every year, and this year it was in Montreal, so I went up to that, and it was literally just like 3 days of like 20-minute talks about like different topics in animation, and I recorded every single one I went to, and I'm pretty sure like there are people like were videotape. You know, it's like one of those things where like there's no like rule or not rule, and I'm not trying to plagiarize someone's paper. Like
right, like you're saying, you're not really putting it out there. You're using it for you.
Yeah,
and refreshers and whatnot.
So I think like intent is all that matters.
But I would say that since I saw you do that somewhere, I was like, oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
and I've done it too. And for the same thing, I'd listen back from my blog post, so I'm quoting the right things, and I'm always almost reliving the moment too. Mm-hmm. So I can tap back into like the feelings I had at the time.
Because I used to sit there and I would try to take notes, and like when you're trying to quote, you're trying to get someone's quote right. It's just the way people talk,
and
is
you're
so
not listening
different
anymore.
Yeah, and the worst is to, like I've done ones where I've interviewed people and then I've had to try to transcribe it and just conversate. Like you don't speak in full sentences. Yeah, and it's just so funny when you're trying to get the correct intonation or the correct, like you're trying to convey like what they're actually trying to say. It's tough.
But I want to double back to the answering of the question of what has been. I mean, now I feel like we've talked so much. I was like, wait, but did we actually get to the answer of the question? Yeah. And some of your challenges is just that you didn't have a schedule in going forward with like your blog and your website.
I think it would have helped because I mean the vlog is nice because I always wanted to do some kind of like series, and I have ideas for series. Like right now, the vlog was kind of something. I'm also like not answering your question again, but like the vlog was kind of. Right now, I was frustrated because I felt like I had finally gotten to a spot where I was comfortable and I could start to make kind of the video essays and the different series on the channel that I wanted to do. And then I ended up back at school and like I moved home. Like I just like everything in my life like very quickly changed.
Right.
And then suddenly I was not able to do that, and I couldn't frankly, I just don't have the bandwidth right now, like doing thesis on top of doing really anything else. And that's something I like complain about in the vlog too, because I'm like, I don't even have time to like exercise, and of course all my friends are like, yes you do, and I was like, no I don't.
You can't.
Yeah, so like the vlog was like a good excuse for me to still put out content.
Yeah, I think, and keep your channel active as well. Yeah,
and like again, it's not quite what I wanted to do, but it's not like, obviously it's not irrelevant to what I'm trying to do. So that's kind of just something. And also on the practical side of it, it was something that it forced me to kind of have at least like a topic that I wanted to talk about. If I couldn't necessarily talk too much about like what I actually did, I could still, like there was one week where I talked about books that were helpful.
I'm happy you're mentioning that because to tell everybody that's listening, even if it's 2 people, Jen reads some of the most interesting, at least titled books that I'm always like, oh, what's that? And at work, I'll be like, I'm just going to take a picture. Yeah. And even if she's not at her desk, I'm like, I'm just going to take a picture of this. And you are a very well-read person. Mm-hmm. And I haven't even read most of the books I've taken pictures of, but they're on my list. I have a Amazon book wish list, and I asked for my birthday. I made some posts and I put the link out, and people gave me books. Aww. Yeah, it was very surprising when the first book came. I was like, someone actually did this.
That's exciting. Yeah. Oh my God, I have to find your list.
You should put one out too, though. You'd be surprised. Just blast it on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And it just also just a really nice feeling, like, oh, what is this? Yeah. It's a book. So I'm reading one book that I remember you were asking for, which was it Save the Cat?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just starting
Adam gave me his copy.
Yeah, I posted that I was reading this book, and like I got some angry messages back.
Everybody who I mentioned, when I sent that email at work being like, does anybody have a copy that I could borrow? I got so many people like trying to caveat it for me, and I was like, I know. Guess I know.
But I was just like, Jen read it. Yeah. Jen was trying to read some books, but
I think people think that like you're gonna take that book to heart. It's just again, I got the same caveat from like every single story person where they were like, oh, like this book's got some good ideas, but like, there's a lot of flaws in it too. And it's like, of course there's not going to be one
Right.
Again, it's like, there's no right way to do any of this.
Right.
I know.
Right. And then for me, as a person that hasn't really been interested in screenwriting itself, I need to start somewhere. You know, and ultimately
and it's
figure
a great
out
place
what
to start.
works for you.
Yeah.
I have that book, and there was some other book. Shoot, what was it called?
Was it like the Robert McKee book?
What is that?
It's just called Story. It's like super thick.
No, it doesn't matter. I even asked people about it, but it doesn't matter now. We'll just keep moving forward. So we know that you worked at the industry Blue Sky Studios, but you also worked at a smaller studio prior to that.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit in comparing your experiences at both studios?
Yeah. So I was at a studio called Cult, and
do they still exist?
They do still exist. It's spelled CVLT instead of CULT.
Interesting.
And like their parent company is Urban Studios, and they're right by FIT. So like it was ideal when I was commuting from New Jersey. It was like two blocks rather from Penn Station.
Got it. The Writer's Journey. That's the other book. I'm gonna read both of them.
Oh, he came to Blue Sky.
Right, I remember.
Yeah. But Cult is cool because their main company, Urban Studios, is more of a print-based company, and they do a lot of like Photoshop retouching and shoots and color correcting for print and for commercials and stuff. And they work in high-end fashion and beauty. And Cult Productions is kind of their more like their CG animation endeavor. And it was really cool because when I was brought on, I came on first as a freelance producer on a job for MAC Cosmetics.
Interesting.
And at that point, like, it kind of worked out really well because at that point I was trying to get my foot in the door doing like freelance work, because that's actually what the recruiter at Blue Sky had told me to do so that I would have a better chance of getting in at Blue Sky. Was like, oh, try to get some like render wrangler, like weekend experience, some freelance stuff. Like,
okay.
And I was like, oh, in the city, that's perfect. So Isla from I Spy Recruiting had actually linked me up with this company. And again, this was like 6 years ago at this point, because I was still at SVA. This was like over the summer break. And it was cool because I did a lot of stuff, for like MAC Cosmetics, DKNY, a lot of stuff for Michael Kors, DVF, Athleta, which is like an athletic line. And they had kind of been trying to sell a lot of these companies. Like they had previous working relationships with these companies with print and like film, but they were trying to sell them on CG, and they kind of needed somebody who could sell them on CG first, like the studio owners. So they brought me along. I think it was definitely like, I totally got like such a good title because like they like I was paid really well.
Yeah.
But like in their eyes, they probably lowballed me because I was like a young, like this was like kind of one of my, like I had experience like through internships and stuff, but this is my first like industry job.
Yeah. And
they just needed someone, you know, for this quick job to kind of teach them the ropes, to teach them the lingo so that they could kind of see what, like know what they were talking about. So when I was there, the other producer had never done CG, like didn't understand any of it. They did have one full-time CG guy who was very talented, and he was kind of both the creator and like the producer, and he couldn't do both because he was constantly like nonstop working late every day, just trying to make like these perfume bottles and these things for these companies. So like that first MAC job, we basically like we did a test for them where we had 3 of their products, and like it was us against like a couple other companies, and we basically like, my job was to sell them as well as the studio owners of like Urban Studios that CG was like the way to go,
okay,
kind of thing. So the argument was you could have these products and you could set up a photo shoot, and then they create new colors, you know, new varieties, and then you have to set up the same thing. But if it's all done in CG, you just like shift the colors, like you kind of can set up the lights however you want, day or night, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter like a location. You don't need to worry about the physical products, the space. So we kind of had to sell them on that. And like that was really cool because that was, again, it was a smaller company. I had my hand in so many different areas. I got to help them set up the pipeline. I got to help them kind of figure out where things were stored, like kind of just like the whole thing from the ground up.
Gotcha.
But not like a crazy pipeline, like a CG pipeline, like at like a Blue Sky or something. This was kind of very small. Like it was all like free tools, like Asana.
I'm not even aware.
Asana, it's just like a calendar, like it's like a task manager,
Gotcha.
like, you know, but it's like you could sign up for one. But it was just cool because like it was like so small and like underground, and then when I got to Blue Sky, it was so different because Blue Sky, yeah, it's like because those companies, like by their very nature, like they're so big, so they just need, like, you basically need to just like, you have like one main task that you have to just do over and over again. And of course, like day to day, like that's, you know, our tasks were different, but in general, like our job was the same all the time. Like we were never going to suddenly get thrown into another department and have to help out. And so it was really limiting, like how much you could learn in your specific role, like once you learned everything. And like that was nice too, because then there was like a level of comfort.
Yeah.
And ideally at that, once you hit that point, like you could theoretically, like you get promoted, but it was like, that was not very easy in such like a big studio versus like this smaller one where you just got, like by nature, like you just had to learn how to do all these other things. Like you had to deal with hiring, you had to deal with looking at reels, you had to deal with the pipeline, you had to deal with like art directors, and you had to deal with clients and talk to clients, and you had to deal with paperwork and bids and paying freelancers and getting freelancers and blocking out people. And it was just like more experience, but obviously like a much smaller scale.
Gotcha. Transitioning back into like industry talk, what are 3 things that you would like to see improve in specifically the animation industry, feature film, shorts, all that, independent?
3 things?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Well, I want unions.
Okay.
Does that count?
Yeah, that's one.
Yeah.
Unions.
Oh man. It's just like, again, certain places, like if you're in LA, like you're set because they have the guilds and stuff. But like outside of that, it's such like a shit show still. Yeah. Even like I remember all that stuff. It really felt like something was going to change after the whole Life of Pi thing and like all those protests and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it was
VFX, but stuff.
Yeah. But I think even like in the games industry, like right now there was the whole thing, like the Telltale to shut down unexpectedly. Mm-hmm. And Telltale, they do like the Walking Dead games.
Gotcha.
And like they recently shut down, and it was like 300 people like had a half hour to like leave.
What?
And like they didn't get severance, and it was because like they were contractor. It was something like, you know, it was something like there's like not a loophole.
A crappy deal.
Yeah, but it was just something where it's like a lot of these companies don't keep on like a full staff because they don't want to pay benefits, and they don't want to, it's like retail when like the retailers they have you work like 35 hours so that you're not working a full 40 hours, so they don't have to pay you benefits,
and you don't go overtime.
Yeah,
if anything, you go to that 40 hours, it may be 1 week, every couple weeks.
Yeah, so it's like stuff like that where it's like just like a bigger issue at large. I like wish that would change, because even like at a company like Blue Sky, like we didn't have any of those problems. Again, I feel like we were definitely some of the luckier ones.
Yeah.
But even then, it was like we were still affected by those things. It's just that the company had to pay it out for it. Like we still had these crazy crunches because like the parent company would move the deadline, or they would do something, and like it would domino onto everybody else. So that, like I said, segues into my next one. It's not really something I want to change, because again, it's like,
it will just improve.
Yeah. But it's like, improve. But it's like, again, as much as like there's no right or wrong way to make movies, I feel like, so, I mean, there's just so much red tape when you have like these bigger companies in charge of these studios.
Right. I was going to say, Blue Sky in particular is a parent company. Yeah. So we got to witness a lot of what that actually means for a movie getting made.
Yeah. Like at Blue Sky, it's interesting because they're owned by Fox. Well, now it's like a little bit up in the air. They're owned by Fox. And the unique problem that creates for Blue Sky is Blue Sky's on the East Coast, unlike most of the other big animation studios that are in California, and Fox's headquarters are in California. So even just that 3-hour time zone difference, that creates like some like not problems, but like just not having that immediate like person to person, like in person, those conversations, like just even something like that, there's like an immediate disconnect that you feel with like the company that owns you, and like the people who, you know, have the biggest credits on the film, you know, like the executive producers and like all of like the biggest names other than the director and like the producer, the Blue Sky producer, because there's always like Fox producers, And it's like these people who get these huge credits and these huge whatever, and you're just like, but I never even saw you working on the movie.
Right.
And it's like, who are you?
Like
and it's not
there.
Yeah, and it's like, it's in not a disrespectful way, but you're literally like, what is your job? Like, what did you do on this movie?
Right.
Like, you watched the reels every 4 months and you gave notes? Like, what is that it? Like, like, surely there's something behind the scenes, and like, you know, there's so much you don't know about what goes into a movie, but you really couldn't help but sincerely question it. And not in a like, oh, well, I'm sure they did something, you know, whatever. I'm just like, no, what did they do? Like, I don't know what they did. And then I think the third one.
Do you want to leave it at 2?
Well, I was going to say, I'm like, make art school less expensive.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, art school's so expensive because of tuition, 1, already. 2, software and art supplies.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And now I'm going through personally a phase where I'm like, I've had all these paints since 2007, because that's when I started.
Yeah.
They have to be at some level of toxic.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Well, I feel like they start that way anyway.
They start off pretty...
I feel like oil paint is like, you're not supposed to touch it and stuff. But I get what you're saying. It's almost like you didn't want to use them because you didn't want to like run out of them. So then you didn't use them, and now they've just been sitting there
and I feel like I don't even know how to properly dispose of some of these like sprays. Like, I have the spray fixative
like the
and
sealant.
stuff. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. But... Anywho, we're about to wrap up. I wanted to wrap up definitely on a lighter note. So what would you say is your favorite animated movie? Or do you have to do timelines or something?
I mean, I could do timelines and I would prefer it, but I do have like an all-time...
I'll let you do 2.
Okay, thanks.
So I'll let you do one pre-2000 and one post-2000.
Okay, great. I was like, they're both like anime.
Okay.
My favorite animated movie is Whisper of the Heart.
I don't think I've seen that yet.
It's like old.
I know. Yeah, I know. It's on my list.
Yeah, Whisper of the Heart is, I don't even remember what year. Maybe like early 90s. The clothing certainly hints at that. But it's a Studio Ghibli movie.
Yeah.
It's directed by this guy, Hoshifumi Kondo, who unfortunately passed away at like 42, so he never made another movie. But he was supposed to be like Miyazaki's successor. And like, he died and he made my favorite movie, and I was like, oh no. And obviously, you know, I don't mean to like reduce his death down to like my need for another movie.
I needed more movies from you.
Yeah, like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Like, but it's interesting because it's one of Ghibli's least magical movies, you could argue. Like, I feel like it's one of the ones most grounded in that, like, there's nothing like, there's like a supernatural element in that, like, there's like a nice coincidence where like the girl befriends this nice old man who ends up being the boy who's had a crush on her, like his grandpa. But like, it's just like a cute like story, and it's about this girl who wants to be a writer, and it's like, I like watch it like every year. And it's just so like cute. It's like a motivator, and it's like I don't know, I just really like it because it's about this girl who like everyone's constantly telling her like, oh, like, you know, you can't live in like your fairy tale books forever, and she's just like, why not? And I'm just like, yeah, why not?
So just.
I relate to this 12-year-old.
And what's your post 2000 movie?
I guess probably, like, again, I think it would be this Japanese movie called Summer Wars, and it's by this guy Mamoru Hosoda, and he directed some of the early Digimon movies, which like already just has a special place in my heart. I love Digimon.
Jen is one of the few people I know that like legit loves Digimon. I would say I enjoy it. I would still watch that first few seasons of Digimon.
Yeah.
But there are only a handful of people that I still see acknowledge its existence.
Mm-hmm. So good. They did like a one-night screening in White Plains of the new Digimon movie, and I was like one of like 5 people in the theater.
Oh my God.
I was just like there by myself. I was just like, this is sad, but I don't care.
This is what I live for.
No, for real.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Summer Wars is really good because that's one of those. So I really like I guess like a genre of fiction I really like is like magical realism, which is, you know, when everything's pretty normal, but then there's like kind of just this one little twist of something that's like magical or like not quite normal. And I think that's like Whisper of the Heart. Like, I think that's just like a genre that I've realized that like I tend to gravitate towards. It's almost like speculative fiction where it's not like hard science fiction, but it's like normal life, but like there's like a slight twist, and it's like something that's just like a little bit different. And like Summer Wars is that and isn't that, but it's like about this boy who ends up having to pretend to be this girl's like fiance and go with her to like a big family reunion And it takes place in this world where like everybody's on social media and everyone has these avatars in like this world called Oz. And it's like everything, like government, banking, everything is on this thing. And it's like there's like a huge security. It's like what happened with Facebook like 2 days ago, where like 50 million accounts got compromised. But it's like this virus like takes over the place, and he gets framed for like causing it, or he gets accused of it. So then they have to kind of go in with their avatars and like fight this virus thing. And it's like fun because it's a very humanizing movie, but it's also got this whole crazy like commentary on like the internet and like social connectivity. And like it's just like fun, and it's good, and it's very emotional.
What is your favorite animated short?
Oh no. That's tough. There's this one called Karn that I really love, that's really influential in like my current movie that I'm working on. And that's Karn, like Carn. I really love Piper from Pixar, not Disney.
Yeah.
I really like Feast.
I thought Feast was going to be the first one.
Feast was like, I mean, for me, it's kind of weird because I'm like, I worked with Patrick, so I'm like, can I still say it was Feast?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Like, but Feast, it was also, like, there was a little more to it than that because, like, Feast came out, like, right around the time that my beagle had passed away, too. And, like, he was that dog. Like, he was just, like lunging under the table to catch a meatball, kind of like just this little chunky dog that just, like, people food.
Who directed Karn?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, okay. But it just left an impression on you.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You know, I feel like this One Small Step short.
Oh, you know what? I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, it's like stabbed me in the heart.
Yeah.
I was not ready.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
I'm
legit
excited.
But I had a personal connection to the story.
Yeah. Which
I blogged about. But it it was like for me personally like a tearjerker. Like I was like, having a great day.
Oh man.
It's so beautiful.
Have you seen oh sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it was so beautiful, and I really like the light treatment for it. Like I love a good stylized CG animated thing. So
have you seen like Dam Keeper?
Yeah, I saw Dam Keeper.
Good.
When I was interning, I got to meet them at the beginning of it all. So just seeing their growth since Dam Keeper.
Wow.
Yeah. Like they were telling us at that point, like this was coming out. Like, you know, we got the first viewing of it. And then they just like catapulted.
Yeah.
It's like
you know what? That you reminded me of the third thing that I had wanted to say. Because the third thing that I was thinking was like, I wish that there was more of like a market, like or like a respectability for animated shorts.
Yeah, I
wish that like in the way that people felt like indie games could never have a platform, and then Steam kind of just shut everybody up. Like I wish there was a Steam for short films.
Yeah,
but
I completely agree.
Also, like I don't want necessarily that exact like business, like a repository like that. But it's like I wish people would justify spending like $5 for a short. But I get like people, it's like they're gonna spend $5, they're gonna want a game that they can play for like 3 hours at least.
Yeah,
and it's like a short. They're like, I don't want to pay like $1 per minute. Ugh. And I'm like, you do that for songs.
It's your gamer guy voice.
Oh, I know. It's like my guy voice.
We've come to the end of the recording, Jen.
Fun.
It was fun.
Unexpected.
It was fun. It was good. I'm gonna apologize to listeners in advance. Where we are recording wasn't intentional, and so therefore there's a lot of ambiance noise called the street of New York City. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll do my best to reduce that in post-production. But thank you, Jen. Yeah. Can you tell the listeners where they can find your blog and how they can connect with you on the interwebs?
Ah, snap. So my site is animationcomplex.com, and you can go there, and from there you could find like Twitter and Instagram, because they're slightly different names, because it's like one of them has like a character limit for the handle, so I couldn't get Animation Complex. So like one of them's Anim Complex, one is Animation Complex. But if you just go to animationcomplex.com, you can find the YouTube, everything's there.
Good.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Jen is an awesome person. I'm so grateful that I was able to have her as being my first guest. Like, I can just talk about her forever. Like, follow her page, follow her social media and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to cap it at the end of the episode again. But she has such like a brain. I learned so much from working with her, working alongside her. And I'm just happy that like our work friendship actually became like a real friendship, you know. So anywho, let's get into some animation news. So at the time of this recording, the Oscar nominations came out for Best Animated Film and Best Animated Short. So that's just what we're going to talk about real quickly. First, we have The Incredibles 2 for animated feature film, Isles of Dogs, Mirai, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Ralph Breaks the Internet, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So I have seen out of this Incredibles 2 and Spider-Man, and I am a little bit ashamed of myself because I've been trying to see Isles of Dogs actually for a while, and I can't remember what happened, why I didn't get to it. I've actually may have overlooked Mirai, and Ralph Breaks the Internet. I had tried to watch that a couple of times, and I ended up just rewatching the first one actually. Okay, for the Oscar nominations for Best Animated Short, it's Animal Behavior, Bow, Late Afternoon, One Small Step, and Weekends. And by the time of the Oscars, I'm actually going to be reviewing all the shorts that's submitted for the animated short category, and doing like a little bit of a review of each. Now, I'm kind of torn between Late Afternoon, One Small Step, and Weekends. But if I had to say, I really, really liked Weekends. I like the theme and the execution, and the visuals. It's a little gritty, but it's a story. Well, One Small Step and Weekends are both stories I can really, really, really relate to. So I it's kind of down for those two. For Best Animated Film, obviously I want Spider-Verse to win. Man, that would just be such an awesome win for Peter Ramsey. Like I said in the last episode, to come from what the industry called like a flop of Rise of the Guardians to then be your next feature project to be nominated Oscar nominated. I'm just so happy for him. So that's it on that. Also, by the end of this month, Kingdom Hearts 3 would finally be coming out. I am sad because I do not have any video game consoles that I would be able to play Kingdom Hearts 3 on. And I have to be a responsible adult and just like put my money towards other things. So I'm sad about that, but I can't wait to see more of the gameplay. I'm just going to be like that person that just watches people play online and wishes that they can play themselves. But I'm so like it's finally happening. Like I cannot believe that. Wow, Kingdom Hearts 3 is really coming out. So anywho's, let's keep things moving. Thank you guys for listening, for resharing, for interacting with the show. Thank you, Jen, for being on here, for being my first guest. You can follow Jen on Twitter at Anim Complex. You can follow on Instagram at Animation Complex. Visit her website, animationcomplex.com, and check out her thesis vlog series, YouTube Animation Complex, right? So again, you can find me on social media at Simply Robotics, robotics spelled ROBOTIX. That's the same for like Twitter, Instagram, my YouTube, everything. You could just go there, one-stop shop. Up next, I am releasing finally some diverse tunes audio, panel audio. So if you were unable to attend one of the panels, don't worry. Slowly but surely, I'm going to be releasing the audio. So this will be from the panel back in September with a couple of my Blue Sky coworkers and such. So, finally, I'll be able to hear it. So thanks again, and until next time. Bye.